your guide, 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗀, and in this episode, we'll dive back into the astrological transits and tarot for the second half of January 2026. If you're thirsty for a soul-filling conversation, well, then grab a bubbly, because you are in the right orbit. So let's fill up your cup until you're no longer thirsty, and instead, you're soulful of it. Hello, soulful seekers. It has been many months, many moons, since I opened up a podcast episode by drinking a seltzer water. No, this is not me cracking a beer. I don't really like beer. Never really did. Drank way too much of it during certain times in my life. And I don't even know why. Probably because I was stupid and young. And that's how it is sometimes when you're stupid and you're young. But hopefully you outgrow it like I do. And then you get on the seltzer water train or something of that sort. This is not a podcast about drinking water, but if you're thirsty, maybe you should. But all the talk of water aside, it's not Pisces season yet, so thank you so much for joining me midway through the first month of the year as the sun in Capricorn continues putting a spotlight on the work that we're doing or avoiding, maybe a little bit of both. And how were those 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗀 that we just had for you all? On the day of the Sun-Venus 𝗧𝗶𝗧𝗀, I found myself feeling quite emotional. At one point, I was crying to my dogs about how much I'm going to miss them while I'm away. Which, side note, if you're listening to this before the 21st, konnichiwa, because I am currently in Japan. But back to the 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗎s. After that Sun-Venus 𝗧𝗶𝗧𝗀𝗎, we had a Sun-Mars 𝗧𝗶𝗧𝗎, during which I also had some big emotions and found myself annoyed at the audacity of how a truck decided to wager both of our lives in order to cut me off while moving through an intersection. Always be defensive driving, I guess, is the lesson there. But I share these very human examples because it's easy to talk about these heart of the sun connections and make them out to be consistently light and joyful. And sometimes they are. And sometimes they're just really intense. Emotions get heated. The transits of the personal planets, which both Venus and Mars are, tend to be experiences that we take more personally. And with the 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗎, they are experiences where you may be more inclined to take it to heart. Whether that shows up as sadness, anger, joy, grief, we don't always get to choose. In fact, often we don't get to choose at all. Because feelings don't arise for us to push them down or set them aside. They are there simply to be felt. And they aren't truly processed or released until they are felt. Sometimes the most medicinal thing you can do is allow yourself to feel. And in a world that's full of numbing out and also sometimes just so sick, we can all use some soulful medicine, can't we? In the winter season, we are seeding the things we want to see sprout come spring. The days are getting longer, and while the days and nights are still cold in the northern hemisphere, we witness ice melting or being chased out of our neighborhoods as they should be. The world is growing increasingly skeptical of the stories and illusions we've been led to believe are true or real. And I think that really speaks to the shift Neptune will be making at the end of this month, which we're going to talk about at the end of this episode. But before we get there, let's revisit our rose card for the month and unveil the thorns, roots, and sun all influencing it for the second half of January. And that card we're carrying forward as our rose for the entire month of January is strength. In part 1, we talked about strength as emotional courage, nervous system regulation, and the power of staying present with intensity without being consumed by it, which seems to have played out during those 𝗧𝗶𝗺𝗀𝗎𝗍s, at least for me. With the cards we pulled this episode, our connection to strength deepens. This is about learning or relearning how to show up with a consistency of gentleness. It's about choosing softness again, even after you've already chosen it once, and maybe didn't get the outcome that you hoped for, or found yourself just losing the gentle touch. Strength for the rest of January asks, can you keep your heart open without abandoning yourself in the process? Can you remain kind without becoming porous, taking in that which isn't yours and carrying the weight of healing it so that it becomes your burden to shoulder? Or at least that's what you're perceiving, perhaps? Can you stay brave and soft without bracing for impact? This card reminds us that real power isn't reactive. It's responsive, and it's observant. As we move through the second half of January, strength becomes the steady hand on the wheel, not forcing direction, but guiding it with trust. For our thorns, we have the Three of Pentacles. In the traditional Smith-Rider-Waite imagery, we see three figures inside a cathedral or some sort of stone structure that appears to be under construction. One person holds architectural plans like a blueprint, while the other two are listening and gesturing in conversation, each playing a distinct role. Above them, three pentacles are carved into the archway, symbolizing shared effort and collective creation. As our thorns, this card brings attention to collaboration and the friction that can come along with it. Threes are about synergy. This isn't about whether teamwork is good or bad. It's about how you're participating. Are you being heard? Are you over-functioning? Are you doing emotional or logistical labor that isn't actually yours to hold or take responsibility for? This card reminds me of that old internet meme that you might remember. It read something along the lines of, when I die, I want the people I did group projects with to lower me into my grave so that they can let me down one last time. Which always made me laugh as a type A person who found themselves knighted as the leader of a group project in college, even when I hadn't raised my hand for the job, which I tried to spin as this compliment about my natural leadership skills. But upon reflection, I realized it may have been more so that I gave the vibe of someone who wouldn't allow us to fail and was willing to pull an all-nighter to cross the finish line and get an A, even if it was actually a solo act. The Three of Pentacles asks us to examine where our strength might be quietly leaking, especially in group dynamics, work environments, or partnerships where roles haven't been clearly defined. Strength at the center with this card as its thorns reminds us that collaboration should support your nervous system, not drain it. Then, for the basis or root, we welcome the Eight of Cups. A cloaked figure walks away from 8 neatly stacked cups on shore, leaving them behind under a darkened sky. The moon hangs above like an eclipse, casting a mysterious and intuitive light. The path ahead winds through rocky terrain, suggesting uncertainty, but also purposeful movement. This is the walk-away energy that doesn't need applause or explanation. It's not rage quitting, it's soul-centered honesty. The Eight of Cups at the foundation of this spread asks, what are you staying loyal to out of habit, not truth? What version of yourself are you gently releasing, even if you can't yet name what comes next? In this departure, strength lends us support. It says you don't have to harden yourself to leave, and you don't have to leave in every way to say goodbye to something that isn't working within the bigger picture. You can walk away with love intact, allowing your footsteps to pave a new path, whether that leads you into scrapping the character you played and writing a new book altogether, or simply turning the page and starting a new chapter. At last, we have the Star as our sun above, and the Star is one of the most tender cards in the deck. And it also holds a connection to the coming astrological season of Aquarius. In the Smith Rider-Waite imagery, we see a nude woman kneeling at the edge of a stream, pouring water both into the earth and back into the water itself. A symbol of balance, renewal, and reciprocity that reminds us of the infamous Aquarian water bearer herself. Above her shines a large central star surrounded by 7 smaller ones, illuminating the night sky. As our guidance, the star doesn't promise that we're going to get immediate answers or antidotes, but it does promise hope comes with a pulse. I've always thought that the nudity in this card is important because it shows that when you show up as your authentic self, simply as who and what you are in this moment of your life, and you accept that radically, lovingly, unconditionally, that's when healing happens. And as our guidance, this card speaks to how it's not wishful thinking to quietly rebuild after healing has led to some sort of having to walk away. The star reminds us that healing, it doesn't require some sort of breakdown to have a breakthrough. Sometimes it simply arrives as a relief. Sometimes healing arrives as the naked truth. The star crowns the spread with a bit of reassurance. What you're moving through or toward, it's in progress and it's real. These cards come together to highlight themes around gentle perseverance and intentional departure as we continue to move through the rest of January. Strength is a steadying of the heart. The 3 of Pentacles is a renegotiation on how and with whom we build. The 8 of Cups is a confirmation that something has already been released. And the star is a reminder that hope, it's not naive, it's regenerative. This is the work of the rest of January, staying soft while moving forward, honoring endings without bitterness, and trusting that what's ahead doesn't need to be fully visible to be real. Now that we have tapped the tarot, let's turn to the transits, starting with Saturday the 17th, when Venus enters Aquarius. This is a love of freedom, as well as love expressed through freedom. It's a deep respect of your partner and their weird or niche hobbies. You want to start collecting animal skulls? You want to learn how to curl, which I guess is a sport? You want to become a Reiki master, a breath worker, or maybe even astrologer or tarot reader? Go off, oddball. I don't care how much I do or don't understand it. Some people might think that you're a freak, but you're my freak. This is the love of Venus in Aquarius. And while that description is intentionally all over the realm of possibilities, that's kind of the point. People who have their natal Venus in Aquarius, they're not seeking your approval, but it still feels good to be supported and to have your wants or interests feel like they're respected. And you can give respect without actually having a deep understanding of something, which is something that these next few weeks with Venus in Aquarius offer us the wisdom of, as well as an opportunity to express love differently, openly, and freely. It's also a wonderful energy for exploring what off-the-wall or unexpected things, people, or experiences bring you pleasure, joy, or simply enable you to feel valued. You may not be the greatest artist to walk planet Earth, but if no one else's opinions mattered, what kind of art would you make that feels like it's just totally you? What experience do you want to call in that's going to empower you to step into the stream of consciousness that matches your unique wavelength? This is the transit for leaning into that which may be unexpected or misunderstood, but is enjoyable and soul-filling for you. And it's also the transit to give others around you the permission to do the same for themselves. Not because you decide what they do by your reaction or response to it, but because when someone shares an expression of self that goes against the grain, and you lean in and get curious instead of rolling your eyes, belittling, or walking away, that's connection. That's support. That's love as a verb. Following Venus entering Aquarius, we have the Capricorn New Moon at 28 degrees on Sunday the 18th at 11:52 a.m. Pacific Time. Capricorn is the sign of the hermit, the mentor, and the father archetypes. Capricorn takes the enthusiasm and energy of Sagittarius and combines it with hands-on application. The sea goat helps take us from ideation to creation. And this new moon in the cardinal earth sign urges us to act on our ideas. And that's because it's conjunct Mercury and Mars, both at 26 degrees. I spoke recently about this conjunction a few episodes back, and it comes up because these are personal planets that travel closely to the sun. And it's also one of those aspects, that Mercury-Mars conjunction, that I have in my own natal chart. And so I'm very familiar with the pros and the cons that come up when the messenger and the warrior come together. It can show up as fighting words for sure, but it can also arise as devoted action. With these planetary bodies coming together in Capricorn, this new moon asks, do you do what you say you will do? What is integrity to you? And what does it look like in action? And when asking yourself for another, can I rely on you? Can I trust you? How do I know? How can you show me with your actions? The new moon is also trine Uranus in Taurus, and this is happening for the last time in our lifetimes, as Uranus is very close to departing the sign of the bull for good. This trine wants to support us with building upon our 3D physical desires, aspirations, and passions. It says try and fail, but don't fail to try, or you're going to miss out on the magic of learning and evolving that awaits you when you put your ideas into motion as efforts that are translated into actions. Lastly, this new moon is also in an opposition to Jupiter. It's a looser aspect because it's 10 degrees off from being exact, but it's still very much an influence. And since the new moon and Jupiter are square Chiron, they're forming a T-square aspect pattern, just like the Cancer full moon did 2 weeks ago. So the story continues to have a relational influence and theme, but instead of boiling over with emotions or leaning into culmination and endings, as we often do with full moons, this one comes as a new beginning that's being made available by putting in the work to heal a relationship. Sometimes that's the relationship with yourself, and other times it's a relationship with somebody else. But in most cases, I think one bleeds into another. Heal your relationship with yourself, and you will begin to naturally heal your relationship with everyone else around you. We live in a world full of mirrors, and relationships, that is the ultimate mirror. With Jupiter square Chiron, there's that added layer of a reward that comes when you do this often challenging work on yourself and how you show up in relationships, which includes how you treat and think of yourself as well as others. Because what we think of ourselves, we so often and so easily, and not always consciously, project onto other people. And the release point for all of this tension that happens around healing a relationship and is the same as it was for the Cancer full moon. It's cardinal air, Libra, which is a sign of taking action, and sometimes you have to lead by example. In this aspect pattern, Libra as the release says that change is possible within a container of harmony. And with this new moon, we're tasked with taking that truth and putting it into action, for which we will receive great expansion. The week that follows our Capricorn New Moon is filled with planetary movement. First, on Monday the 19th, the sun enters Aquarius, kicking off the season of the water bearer, which I know is especially confusing combined with the word aqua being inside Aquarius, Aries. But this is an air sign, and therefore the collective spotlight is on matters of the mind. Aquarius is ruled by Saturn in traditional astrology and Uranus in modern astrology. I like to think of the waves of the Aquarius glyph as electrical waves, because this intelligent sign is known to go against the grain, sometimes shocking people with their unique genius just as much as their cooler-than-you style and their high IQ. This sign is smart and quirky, and the season brings similar vibes. It's a wonderful time for creativity that doesn't fit the mold. Maybe even self-teaching a new hobby, utilizing the independent energy of the fixed air sign season to your benefit. With that modern rulership of Uranus, which actually has a connection to astrology, this is a really great time to learn astrology in particular. So if that's something that you're interested in, there are so many different great voices out in the world of astrology amongst so many other cool topics. And Aquarius season is such a great time for learning something that you can't quite put into a box. Because you can't box in an Aquarius. They're way too free for that. And that's one of the things that makes them so freaking awesome. And yeah, I'll admit it, they're cooler than me. They always have been. And that's inevitable because I'm a fire sign and I tend to run hot. Then, on the very next day, Tuesday the 20th, Mercury follows the sun and also enters Aquarius, where it is exalted, making this transit one of the best for mercurial tasks like writing, speaking, and researching. The next few weeks with this brief transit invites us to share our wildest ideas, our unique creativity, and maybe even some conspiracy theories. This transit is great for extracting ideas and playing with them in the sandbox of life. Aquarius is known as a community builder and humanitarian, but it is also very much a self-reliant sign. So for some, this transit might call for engaging in community activity, while for others, it may be best to tackle some sort of solo project or pursue an interest that really only pertains to you. Regardless of the who that you interact with, one thing is for sure, you'll want to pursue the idea that is off the beaten path to see what could come from it, or you're going to miss out on the opportunities that Mercury's exalted transit through Aquarius offers. Then we wrap up the week with another planet following suit on Friday the 23rd. As Mars enters Aquarius, Einstein, take the wheel. Mars in Aquarius is strategy first, execution next. If I can't get there by land, keep an eye on the coastline as I may arrive by sea. Or maybe look up and see if I come skydiving down from a helicopter. Detours and roadblocks are puzzles waiting to be solved as Mars makes mindful moves through Aquarius. Be cautious of assuming each move is a checkmate or going at it alone because you lack the patience to slow down enough to collaborate. This is that Three of Pentacles energy in a different kind of way. Those who have their natal Mars in Aquarius understand that making strategic moves also sometimes requires surrendering to divine timing. They play the long game, allowing themselves to experiment with the where or the how when they've already determined the what or the why for their actions. There is more than one way to get where you're going. This transit is one that's great for trying out the psychic skill building practice of envisioning two different outcomes and sensing into which way forward makes the most sense for you and what just feels like it's the right direction to go. It's kind of getting us primed for Pisces season. Now, in order to do this, you're going to want to be alone in a quiet place where you can allow yourself to meditate on each possibility separately. Through contrast, feel into the outcomes individually as you walk yourself through imagining the steps that you will take to go one way versus another. If this isn't something that comes naturally to you to do by yourself, a good way to experience that contrast is by doing a yoga nidra meditation. And there are a lot of people out there who've got some great ones. Jana Romer, of course, is my favorite. She was a guest on the podcast many moons ago, and she's just incredible. She's also an astrologer on top of an amazing meditation leader and a yogi, of course. And she does yoga nidra, and then she also does astro nidra, which is, of course, a combination of the practice of yoga nidra with astrology. Two really, really cool mindsets and modalities. I love to play around with contrast, and I think Mars in Aquarius really feeds into the benefits of that. And it can really help with developing and deepening self-trust when it comes to decision making. Just remember that the decision that you make is the right one, simply because you made it. Then we wrap up the month with a noteworthy planetary shift on Monday the 26th when Neptune re-enters Aries. It's not deja vu, it is the dance of a recent retrograde cycle. Yes, we have talked about Neptune and Aries before, and not that long ago. Since Neptune stationed direct last month, it's finally graduated from that 29 degrees purgatory and broken ground in Aries for the final time. Translation: we have officially entered a new era filled with ambitious visions, humanitarian actions, and battles that unfold within the unseen, hidden, and spiritual realms. These next 14 years are ripe for new spiritual ideas as well as leaders to rise to popularity and power. It will be wise over these years to be cautious of narratives that have been carefully crafted to agitate and activate the masses. There was this clip on a podcast that I saw where a man was speaking about how there is one word that holds importance when you're trying to identify if someone's trying to direct your beliefs or write the scripts of your opinions for you, and that's the word maybe. When presented with a strong perspective, a half-baked theory, or an opinion dressed up and delivered as a fact, you don't have to agree or disagree. Instead, you can just reply back to them, or you can just simply reply to yourself, maybe. Then fill in the blank. Maybe 9/11 was an inside job. Maybe Bigfoot is real. Maybe democracy in America is a facade. Maybe the aliens are already here and maybe Elon Musk is one of them. Maybe. And also maybe not. But that one word, it keeps the door open without shoving you through it, one direction or another. It allows you to sample both sides of a story without declaring yourself Team Jacob or Team Edward, which I guess is a really old reference now. But if you know, you know. Something else that we're going to want to be taking into consideration with Neptune in Aries is the significant overlap with Saturn at the start and the building conjunction between the two that comes exact later next month. We'll be getting into that in a couple of weeks, as well as touch on it in the Astrology of 2026 episode, which, by the way, is still on its way. We just have the small delay of me being able to record it while I'm all the way across the ocean. But keep an eye out for its arrival on a surprise date soon. As we wrap up this episode, let's tap back into the tarot. Strength reminds us that real courage doesn't require force. It asks for presence. The Three of Pentacles invites us to be intentional about how and with whom we build, honoring collaboration without overextending ourselves. The Eight of Cups confirms that something has already been released, even if the departure was quiet and unseen. And the Star reassures us that hope is not something that we stumble upon, it's something that we choose. Just as healing doesn't happen to us, it happens through us. Together, these cards affirm that the second half of January is about trusting your inner compass, honoring what is already complete, and continuing forward with steadiness, even when the night is dark and the path ahead is still unfolding. If you're curious to learn more about how the transits of 2026 happen to be impacting your own natal chart, you can book a reading with me or purchase a pre-recorded mini reading through the link in the show notes, or also available in my Instagram bio at @SoulfulOfIt. With excitement for all the changes that 2026 brings, I have extended my discount on live virtual astrology readings from now until we usher in the year of the horse on February 17th. So don't forget to use code MAGICIAN when booking your reading, and it will drop to $99. This discount also works for gifted readings. Coming up in the part 1 episode for February, we'll talk about the Leo full moon, Mercury and Venus entering Pisces, and the notable shift of Saturn joining Neptune and entering Aries. Thank you as always for spending some of your time with me, exploring the cards and the cosmos. Stay grounded, stay curious, stay soulful of it, and I'll catch up with you in February.